Welcome. As you know, my name is Rob Shea, and I like to discuss infrared photography. So I wanted to do a live stream to do some of the things that I can't do in the videos that I regularly put together, and that I that are and deal with some things that are harder to address in comments. And so that's basically what I'd like to accomplish today, and then of course give you all an opportunity to participate. The other thing that would, if is we could do if there's an opportunity, is if anybody would like to send me a file to edit, if they're struggling with a file and they'd like me to take a look at it and try to edit it, then I'd be happy to do that as well. So I have let me share a link here where you can send me files. So I've got a link on the bottom of the screen there. So it is the 590.red/share. And of course, you're going to have the HTTPS at the beginning of that. So if you're interested in having me take a look at a file, maybe you're struggling with the basic process of how to process your infrared photos, and you'd like me to take a look at that. I primarily work in Lightroom and Photoshop, but I've also worked in open source programs such as Raw Therapy and Darktable, and a variety of other programs as well. If you've seen some of the reviews, I've done reviews on about a dozen different programs to try to, for me, it was to try to find which one was the best for infrared, and to find the pros and cons of each. So let's dive in and get started. So looks like to start with, we've got a question from Franco, or a comment, which is, "Hi, I use Photolab DxO, but I don't think it's the best for infrared." So I'm trying to remember if I did a video on this or not. I know I've looked at DxO, and I don't think it worked very well. I think that I don't remember exactly, but I think there was maybe it didn't have a channel mixer support. I think that was the issue with DxO, but I definitely looked at it, and I know that it was something. It may be one of the ones that I just chose not to do a video on because it simply had no support at all. So that would be one that I would probably steer clear of, is DxO, at least for infrared stuff. So let's talk about a question that I get all the time, and we'll get that right off the bat. And so that is, the question is, do I need to set up a custom white balance in camera? Should I set a white balance with the filter in place? Should I shoot a white card, gray card, green foliage, or grass for a custom profile? So let's talk about when you want to set a white balance in camera and when it's not important to set a white balance in camera. So there's really two scenarios that you're looking at here. One scenario is that you're shooting in RAW, and with RAW you have a lot of choices. And then the other scenario is you're shooting in JPEG. So let's deal with the JPEG scenario first. So the JPEG scenario is going to be most common if you're using maybe you're using a point and shoot camera. Maybe you're using a camera like the Kalari Pocket. Maybe you're using a mobile phone, a camera that doesn't support RAW, and you're going to want to figure out, hey, how can I get a white balance? And really, with those devices that are going to use JPEG, you're really going to need to set a RAW. You're going to need to set a white balance in the field while you're shooting. So you're going to need to point your camera at one of those neutral objects. So that's going to be clouds, grass, roads, sidewalks, white buildings, gray buildings, anything white or gray or green even, because green is considered basically neutral in infrared because it's not going to be captured as a color. Any of those can be used to capture your white balance. So definitely, if you're shooting JPEG, it's a must. You have to do a white balance in the field. Now, if you're shooting RAW, it's a choice. You have a choice. You can choose to set a custom white balance in the field, or you can just doesn't matter, set it to a default, or set a custom one, set a preset. Doesn't matter, because in RAW you have the full ability to make that change afterwards in your RAW editor. So what do I do? So there are a few cases, like for example, if I have a camera, I have a mirrorless camera that's been converted to 590 nanometers. maybe every great once in a while, I'll set a custom RAW on that, and I'll leave it on that camera and just leave it at that setting. But I don't really mess with it on a day-to-day basis, because I know that I'm going to be really focused on the white balance in post-production. But if I'm shooting with my Kalari Pocket, and I'm looking to shoot with that and white balance with that, then I'm going to want to have a white balance set in the field. So that's the main difference you need to be aware of when setting a white balance is, are you going to JPEG? Are you going to RAW? JPEG, absolutely set a white balance. RAW, the choice is yours. So it looks like we've got a few people joining us here in the chat. So let's see. So thank you, Franco, for your question. Hey, Peter. Hey, John. Let's see. From scratch, what John says, what will my outlay be to get into infrared photography? So it varies pretty widely. I would say there's three. There's so many routes you could take. The simplest route is going to be to just grab an infrared filter and put it on an existing camera. So probably the next video that I put out, the next recorded video, is going to be focused on shooting infrared with a mobile phone. And so that's actually a pretty low outlay in cash, so I could buy a filter for maybe $20, and I can buy an adapter to get that on there for $15, and that's pretty easy. If you already have a camera and you want to shoot infrared, then you just need a good infrared filter, and that'll set you back anywhere from, say, $50 to $100, and then you could shoot infrared. If you want to convert a camera, now you're talking about $275 US, and then of course adding on filters, and the price will go up from there. If you get the Kalari Pocket, which is a full spectrum already converted infrared camera, you can get those for with the conversion and with filters somewhere around $200 to $300 for that. And so that's actually a great way to get started and try out a bunch of filters and see how that works. So that's a good start there. So let's see here. Let's answer one more question that I have from my list that I brought in from comments from the videos. And this is from Pete, and he says, do you need a profile for each filter that you own? I have a complete set of Life Pixel filters, and I'm wondering if one profile for the camera would be enough. So yes and no. So you don't need a filter, you don't need a profile for every single filter. The purpose of the profile is to help you get a white balance that falls within range. And not every so that's really the ultimate goal. Different infrared filters will adjust the need for moving the white balance into range. They'll adjust it by varying amounts. And so all you need to do is get into that range, a little bit or a lot, it doesn't matter. So basically you could theoretically have a camera that has a single profile that works with all of your filters. When I did all my testing and built all my filters, I really realized for me that there were really just two that I needed. One that would shift the temperature by -100 and one that would shift by -50. And that covered all of my use cases. And then as I've been putting together the infrared profile pack, with collecting raw files from all of you and putting filters together for those, then I've pretty much realized that kind of covers all the cases. I'm still looking for an edge case where you need more than that, but not really. So you don't need a profile for every single filter, but you will need one for you probably need a couple to cover the bases. So let's see here. So hello, Carolyn from Florida, welcome. Let's switch over here to my screen and we'll take a look at this. Let's see here. Shut that off. So what I'm going to do here is I'll do a little bit of editing, maybe between some of these questions. So this is a shoot that I did. This would have been in November, and on a trip to Yosemite. And I always struggle whenever I shoot at Yosemite. It's obviously it's breathtaking and it's gorgeous, but I always feel like this incredible pressure to put out good photos, because like the bar is so high when you shoot at Yosemite. So it's like, so on one hand I love going there, but it's always a challenge for me to actually get through processing the photos. I find it kind of intimidating. So let's see. So what I typically do in a shoot like this, because I'll shoot an obscene number of photos. This was probably 1,200 photos, 1,300 photos that I shot. So what I'll typically do is make a first pass and do ratings on my images, and the ratings will help me determine where to focus my time. Because if I didn't do that, I would just go down a rabbit hole of trying to perfect every image, even images that weren't worth my time. So I'll rate my images to try to get a feel for what the ones that I want to focus on. So for example, if I have a let's see, a 5-star image, if I've rated it 5 stars, to me that's the best. So here's some examples of some 5-star images that I want to work on, that I want to focus on. And then as I go down, typically like 4 and 5 stars are like the best. Portfolio 3-star images are like the ones that I will typically share on Instagram or might have for other purposes. And then when we get down to 1 and 2 stars, it's stuff that I want to keep, but maybe images that I may not share. Maybe they're test images, or that I'm using for them for some other thing. So we could dive in here and take a look at some of these. So this is an image that I shot. This is an HDR that I put together from the valley view. So this is one of the entrances to Yosemite, and I've made some good progress here. I'm not really done with it. Usually when I work on images like this, I want to sit down and look at it at least 2 or 3 times, multiple sessions, and try to go over it repeatedly. Sometimes when I sit down, I see something fresh. So like, for example, the face of El Capitan here is just a little too bright, so maybe I want to come in and, make an adjustment here. So this, let's see what I've done up to this point. It's been a while since I've worked in this, so I don't remember. It looks like I've already got a circular filter here. I've already brought the highlights down. Yeah, so I might need to maybe do another filter that's a little bit more precise here. Come in and just take maybe the exposure down a hair. And yeah, so that dropped the exposure by 1/3 of a stop. And then I'm going to let's see, let's try a luminance mask so I can eliminate some of the now it's affecting the high end. Luminance isn't going to cut it. Let's do a brush then, and I will brush this out. I want to just brush out the impact on the sky. Let's see here. So we'll go to erase, and I'm going to drop my feather, drop the size, and I'm just going to go in, get a flow of 50, and we'll erase some of that impact in the sky, so that filter's not adjusting the sky there. Okay, so that's pretty. So there's a nice little change I've made to that image, and I can come back to it again and work on it in the future. Let's see here. So let's see what questions we've got coming in. So Peter says, hate to ask, but still not figured out where to find or put the DNG in Windows. It's more of a I don't know Windows problem. So all right, let's walk through that, Peter. I know you're struggling with that, and so let's see if we can figure that out here. We'll dive into where those are located. So let's see here. Let me bring a Windows screen in here. I'm going to have to figure out where, let's see. I've got another window open that I'm looking at, and I'm going to try to figure out what the actual location is. I've got some shortcuts here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm in Windows, and in Windows, I need to find the location where I'm storing this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go to my C drive, which is getting too close to be full, and I should really take care of that soon. So I'll go into my C drive, and I'm going to go into Users, and then pick my name. And then from here, we want to go to App Data. And this is a hidden directory, and this could be part of the challenge you're seeing. if you go up here under View in Windows, there's an option that says to show hidden items. And if you're not finding app data, it could be because it's hidden. So that could be part of the challenge here. So let's go into app data. And then from here, we go into roaming and Adobe, camera raw. And now we're in the space where we have all the settings that we need for Adobe stuff. So there's a couple different areas to look at. So if you're looking at profiles, there's this directory called camera profiles. And this is where you would see the profiles. So you can see here I've got a whole bunch of profiles for my X-T20 and profiles for my X-T2 and then a handful of other cameras. I used to have a Canon SL1, so I've got a profile for that. And then I've got a subdirectory, which is basically the profile pack. So this is all of the images in the profile pack. So this is where you put profiles. So these are the DCP, which stands for digital negative color profile. So DCP files go into the camera profiles folder. And then there's another, if we go back up a level, back up to camera raw, there's another folder called settings. So if you go into that folder, this is the place where we would put enhanced profiles. So this is XMP. So these are the enhanced or LUT-based profiles that you might use to allow you to do editing in Lightroom without having to go to Photoshop. So if you have an XMP file, it's going to go into the camera raw and then settings folder. So so take a look there and see if you can kind of drill down there and navigate through that. If you struggle with that, it could be because there's a hidden folder that's preventing you from getting to that level. Okay, let's see. So let's see. I've got a question here. Elaine's. I tried an IR photo with all the edit tips you gave, but never succeeded in creating the typical colors. Just uploaded a JPEG version of the non-edited photo. Hope you can help me or do something. All right, an uploaded photo. So let's go in here into, let's see, I'll go into my library. And I've got a place where I've been in Dropbox. So we'll open, I'm going to pull up the import. We'll see how well this works on the fly. Checking out a photo on the fly. Let's see. Looks like we've got a few new photos here. So let me just bring these in. Check all. Okay, I will import these. All right, let's see here. And a TIFF file. Let's see. So that could be, yep, that could be these two images. So let's see here. So we've got a JPEG and a TIFF. So let's start with the JPEG. So let's see what first of all, I want to know what camera this is. So this is a 750D. 750D. And my first question is, do I have a profile for this? So let's find out. Well, I don't have a raw file to work with, so that's not gonna matter. So let's start here. So I'm gonna open up your JPEG, and it looks like, based on the colors here, it looks like, so I guess if this, the first question I have is, was this JPEG taken in camera? It doesn't seem like it if you have a TIFF. If the JPEG was taken from another format, if you have a raw that you want to upload, oh, the Rebel T6i, got it. If you have a raw file that you can upload, like a CR2, I think it is, then please upload that, because that'll be easier to work with. The JPEG is already got the white balance baked in, and there's limited changes that I'm going to be able to make here. You can see there's a huge red cast, and if we try to white balance on the sky, we can get most of it out, but we can't quite get all of it out. And the Tiff, I think, is basically going to be the same thing. Yeah, the Tiff's going to be the same thing. So really, if you originally shot this as a Tiff, then you're going to need to white balance in the field. If you have a raw file that you can upload, then go ahead and upload that raw file, and I can take a look at that, and we'll look from there. Let's see. So we've got some more questions. Uploaded a Tiff. Do you have a preference, Lightroom or Photoshop? So really, they do two different things. I will say, in general, I prefer Lightroom, but that's just because I shoot a lot and I have a large volume of photos to go through, and Lightroom just makes that so much easier to go through a large volume of photos. It's not, there's things that's missing compared to Photoshop, but for bulk processing lots of images, I really like Lightroom, and it really gets me, it probably covers 90 to 95% of what I'm doing in Lightroom. So I really like Lightroom, but Photoshop is essential for certain things. Before I put together the enhanced profiles with LUTs, of course, I was always going over to Photoshop to swap colors. I don't have to do that anymore, but so that's really nice. Aside from that, the things that I tend to do in Photoshop the most are, anything that would involve layers, or anything that would involve the healing brush would be the big thing that I would do in Photoshop. So most of the time I'm spending my time in Lightroom, but probably for 5 or 10% of my images, they'll end up going. So for me, it would be that star rating. So if I have a 4 or 5 star image, then I might say, yeah, this is an image that, this is a profile piece for me. This is one of my best pieces. Maybe I'm going to print it. So yeah, I'm going to take it over to Photoshop and I'm going to spend extra time on it. I want to put a lot of extra care into it. But if it's something that's going to Instagram, I'm not going to, most of the time I'm not going to bother going to Photoshop. Let's see. Max, Kalari, or Life Pixel, which is best? So I have not tested all of these, so I definitely can't say which is best. What I can say is that I have had 2 cameras converted by Life Pixel, and I've been very happy with both of those cameras. I have purchased the Kalari Pocket from Kalari Vision, and I've been very happy with that camera. And I have a couple neutral density filters that I've purchased from Kalari Vision, and I'm actually testing those out now for an upcoming video. And I have not used Max. So for me, if we're talking about conversion companies, every once in a while you hear about somebody that has a bad experience with a conversion company, and I think that's just kind of normal with every product. But I think these are great companies, and that they really, in general, do a really good job, and they really want to put out a quality product. So it's hard for me to say that one is going to be better than the other, because I just haven't seen that happen. They're really good companies. Let's see here. I'm going to take a drink here because I'm talking nonstop. Okay, so next question. Often when I use the 590 nanometer and I've edited in Photoshop, I zoom in 100% and my sky is all blotchy, not banding blotchy. I can really see it when I convert to black and white. So let's see. So that, so there's a couple things that I'm thinking of that it could be there. So we're talking about Photoshop and a 590 image. So it could be that. So what I would do, the first thing I would check, let's open up Photoshop here. And let me find an image. I don't know if I've got anything that I worked on recently that I could open up just to get me an image open so that I could, yeah, so here's an image that I worked on recently. So if you're in Photoshop, one of the things to do is go under image and mode. And what I'll typically do, a couple things to keep in mind. So the channel, the bit rate, if you're in 8-bit, if you do some of your processing, let's say you start to do color swapping when you're in 8-bit, that could be really problematic. You could end up with a lot of banding and artifacting types of stuff there. So try to keep your images if you can, in at least 16-bit. And then typically the very last step of your process, so when you're going to Instagram, or when you're, maybe sometimes going to print, maybe you would go to 8-bit, but try to keep everything at 16-bit, because that can cause some challenges. And then the other thing that could cause, especially in 8-bit, the other thing could cause challenges is if you're down in the profile. Let's see, continue, assign profile. So this is something that caught me recently that I was dealing with. So if you go into edit and assign profile, this image will come up, and you can choose the profile that gets assigned to an image. And these profiles could have a big impact. So basically, in a nutshell, sRGB is the common profile that's used for most screens and for the internet, and sharing on the web. These other profiles, ProPhoto and Adobe RGB, have a broader color space, more, which is really more important in visible light. But switching between profiles could potentially have that impact as well. So that's the first thing that I would check, would be to make sure your color bit is set to 16-bit and not 8-bit, and then you're not going to 8-bit until you're ready, until you're finished editing your image. Let's see here. Let's see. Ooh, we're uploading that CR2 file, so let's see if I've got that yet. Let me sort my uploads here. Let's see. Joanne says, please check my question above. But I'm looking up and I'm not seeing it. Let's see here. Not seeing your question. So maybe enter it again, if you would please. Okay. All right, let's take a look at, let me see if I can find. All right, let me go back to Lightroom, and we will try to import this image, the CR2. I don't remember if the T6i is in the profile pack, but we'll find out soon enough. Let's see here. This looks like another Tiff. I think you said you were uploading a CR2, but the only thing I'm seeing here is a Tiff. Unless I'm looking in the wrong place. Let's see here. Let me switch over here while I look for it. Okay. I think you might have uploaded another Tiff, not necessarily a CR2 file. I'm trying to sort my incoming files here. See if I can find it. And no, I'm not seeing it. So maybe give it another try. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions in the chat? I'm still... Okay, let me move on. Let me move on to, let's see, somebody, a previous question that I had was from the comments, and the video comments was from Crow, can I just edit infrared image in Lightroom, or do I need Photoshop? I kind of touched on that a few minutes ago. But the main reason to use Photoshop would be to do a channel swap, a color swap, or an invert of colors. And so if you don't do a lot of infrared, then Photoshop might be the easiest way to do that. If you like to use Lightroom or shoot a lot of images, then you may find an enhanced profile is a better way to go. So you can really go either way. I like the enhanced profiles. Again, that's so I can keep like 90-95% of my workflow in Lightroom, and then only go over to Photoshop occasionally when I need to. Let's see here. Yeah, DNG. You could upload a DNG will work fine as well. So a DNG is basically a container wrapped around a raw file. So sending me a DNG file would be fine as well. Let's see. Okay. Best wide angle lens for IR. Canon. Let's see. That's going to be a tough one. So I don't shoot Canon anymore. And I did. I used to shoot Canon, and when I started in infrared, I was a Canon shooter. And my first infrared conversion was to a Canon camera. But I ultimately switched over because I was doing a lot of hiking, a lot of traveling, and the glass just got to be too heavy for me. So I'm not in a position to offer an opinion on what the currently the best wide angle is, but definitely check the resources that are available. So let me see here if I can find a link to resources. I've got one here. Let me pull it up. Okay, there we go. So, nope, this one. Alrighty. So here is a link for where you can look for lenses for infrared. What I would do is I would check all of these sources and look at the different providers to try to find out which ones will and will not have hotspots, because that's going to be the key you're looking for. Is it's for me, it's always a combination of does it have a hotspot and what is the quality. So there's really two things there. So because of course there's some lenses that will not have hotspots, but you might not like the quality. So you might have to look at a couple different sources there to juggle all that information. So look at all of the various databases to find images that have to find the lenses that do not have hotspots. And then once you found those, then you can use other sources on the web to find out which ones have the best quality and which ones are a good match for you. Let's see. Is this going to be recorded, Rob? Yes, this is going to be recorded, and I will make it available later. Also, do you save in PSD or some other format like TIFF? From Peter. Thanks, Peter. So when I'm in Lightroom, one of the benefits of Lightroom is that as a raw editor, it's non-destructive, and so you don't need to make any changes. And so if I'm working on an image in Lightroom, then I can typically keep a big portion of that into Lightroom, and I'm not saving it at any file format at all. And so that works out pretty well. If I am, let's see, if I am going to Photoshop, then by default that will save the image as a PSD file. When I go outside for printing or to go to Instagram or other sources, then that's where I will typically save in a different format. I've tried working with TIFFs. I know that there's certain advantages to them, but for me, I just haven't. There just hasn't been enough. So typically, I'll just if I'm going to edit an image in Photoshop, then I will typically put it into PSD. And that's fine. And I can if you set the maximize compatibility for your PSD settings in Photoshop, then you'll be able to open them in Lightroom just fine. You won't have any trouble. Okay, let's see. Did you ever consider aerial photography? Absolutely. That's something I do want to get into, but of course, as you know, with infrared, everything has this challenge of like trying to convert a camera. And the problem with drones that I find is that, the drone market seems to move even faster than the camera market. And there's just new drones coming out, one after the other. So I would love to get a drone and convert it to infrared at some point. I don't know when that's going to happen for me. So it might just have to be the right drone or the right convergence of factors or whatever. But I'm sure I'll get to it at some point. I definitely do want to. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, I think the video was stuck. I think there was a problem with my my camera, so that's why I switched over to this other view. Let's see here. So it looks like we might have a DNG uploaded. So let's see if we can find that and get back to editing this image. The other thing I'll do is if we do this repeatedly in the future, then I people would be able to send me images ahead of time to queue them up, for future live streams as well. Okay, so it looks like I've got a few images here. So we'll import these and take a look. All right, so I've got let's see, something. I've got a image as unsupported or damaged. Oh, that's some different file. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, those were other old files. I forgot to uncheck those, so that's not a problem. Okay, so let's open up this DNG file, and I'm in Lightroom. I'm gonna hit D to go to the develop module. And so right here you'll see cool infrared profile missing. So this is a profile that you were using, and I don't have this profile, and so I won't be able to exactly match what you were doing, but I'll see what I've got otherwise. So let's see. So it looks like I don't have a profile for this yet in the profile pack. So let's let me see here. Let me see what this is. Is this that 60i? Yeah, it is. So let me do that real quick. So I'm going to open this up, and let's see. Oh, here I'm going to move this over to my main screen so you can see what I'm doing. So I've got the profile editor, and let's see. I've got all these. Let me move this so I have to see everybody's images. Want to try to be respectful of people who are sharing their images with me and not share them when I don't have to. Let's see. So I got to figure out what the name of this file was again. Let me go back here and okay, got it. And open. Here we go. Got it. All right, so we'll open this up. And let's see here. This is looks like this is the 750. You can see I've done created some other profiles here, but this is the standard one. So we'll go into, got it, my temp at -50 already, and so we're good to go. So I'll export this, and I'm actually saving that now to the profile pack. What I'm going to also do to save myself some time is I'm going to close Lightroom, because I know I'm going to need to restart Lightroom. And then I'll come back over here, and I'm going to rename this to 100. I'll do a second one, -100. This is what I do every time you guys send me a raw file, is I will set the name, set this, double check that I'm using the right thing here, export it, and drop it into the right place. Okay, so I've got those created. Now I'm going to, let's see, little multi-screen action going on here, trying to get everything into the right place. I saved these into the pack location where I'm going to put them into the pack, but I need to get them into my actual camera profile folder, so that so that Lightroom can see them. So I am I'm doing that right now, and I got to find out where they are. Let's see here. Here's the profile pack. So let's see here. I've got to sort these by date. There we go. So here's the two new ones, the 750D. Got those copied over. Let me relaunch. Oh, I didn't hit that checkbox. So let me relaunch Lightroom. This is all the stuff that gets edited out in my videos that you never see. It's all chop, chop, chop in the editing room floor. You just see the good stuff. Let's see here. Oh, it's still loading. Oh, and you notice there's an infrared photo in the Lightroom splash. That's very nice. Okay, so let's see. We still have this DNG loaded. And I'm going to come over to the profiles, and yay, now I have the 2 profiles from the profile pack. So I've got my -50, -100. Let's just start with the -50. We'll see what that does. So really, again, they're both doing the same thing, but just to a different degree. They're trying to shift the color balance so that you can find an acceptable balance in the range. Let's see here. So I will try to white balance on the clouds. It's not quite enough. This one looks more dramatic, so I'll go to the -100 and we'll get there. So so it looks like this gives me a white balance of 2000 Kelvin, so it's not within the range. If I use the -51, that's giving me that as well. So neither of these is enough. So now I'm very curious about what filter this was shot with. So I have 2 questions for you. If you could post these, and this will be our ongoing project in this stream is to figure this one out. So 2 questions for you: is this a converted camera or not, or an unconverted camera, so not converted? And then what filter was used? Because I've seen a few people send in images where when I do the white balance, the image looks green. And what I'm thinking happened, this is my guess, my guess is that I've seen people try to use a 590 nanometer filter on an unconverted camera, which will not work, because then the greens are coming in. Well, is it greens or yellow, or maybe a lower one? I don't know. There's something weird going on. So yeah, maybe 550. Yeah, so that's what I've seen this a few times, and it's typically people that so what you should be aware of, while we get to the bottom of this, is that if you have an unconverted camera, then you need to be using a 720 nanometer or higher numbered filter with an unconverted camera. And the reason is that visible light ends at about 750, and so that 720 is just going to allow you to capture just a sliver of red, but it'll get mostly infrared. The problem is if you're using an unconverted camera and you use a lower filter, like say 665, 590, 550, 470, one of those, it's just going to flood the sensor with visible light, and you're not going to get any infrared at all. And that could be what I'm seeing here. So just an FYI, I love shooting with unconverted cameras. You can get amazing results with them. You don't have to shoot converted, but if you do shoot with an unconverted camera, you really, really, really need a 720 nanometer or greater filter. Okay, so let's see where I am in the comments here. See if I can catch up. Do you prefer a zoom? This is from Peter. Do you prefer a zoom or a prime? What is your favorite lens to use in terms of focal length for infrared? I know it would depend on what you're shooting, but is there a better one? So let's see. So I tend to prefer primes, and there's a couple of reasons. So first of all, I can't help but be a pixel peeper at time and worry about image sharpness. I know we're not supposed to. So it's all about the quality, the story you're telling in the image and stuff. But I'm also trying to produce good work at the same time, and sharpness is important to me. And I've just found that in general, a couple things. So in general, primes tend to be higher quality than zooms, and for infrared they tend to have fewer hotspots, and so I tend to use primes. My favorite prime right now, probably by far, is so I shoot Fuji, the X mount for Fuji, and my favorite prime is the 14mm f2.8. I think it's a fantastic lens. It's wide enough for me. It's sharp. It's fantastic. My next favorite lens is the 23mm f2, which is super lightweight, but it's also, the image quality is fantastic. I've yet to try the 1.4, but excuse me, I use the f2 and it's fantastic. And then occasionally, rarely, I will use the 50mm f2 as well, which also has fantastic image quality. So it's like a set of, occasionally if I'm going out and I'm grabbing lenses because I don't know what I'm going to be shooting, I'll grab those three lenses, the 14, the 23, and the 50. They're fantastic. And so those are my preferred. I don't do a lot with zooms. And lately I've been shooting a lot of vintage lenses. In fact, I just picked up some more vintage lenses. And so I've been trying to do a lot more with vintage primes. So I really have done very little with zooms. I have the one zoom that I use occasionally is for Fuji is the 55-200, which doesn't have hotspots at like f8 or lower, f5.6 or lower, I forget. But there's some cases where it doesn't have hotspots, and so I tend to lean towards. I've tried some lower quality Fuji lenses, like I was really excited about the 16 before I got the 14mm. I was really excited about the 16mm 2.8, and I bought that lens and it was horrible. I mean, I don't know if it was my copy. It was soft. It was just terrible. I was so utterly disappointed. And then I went out after that. I just sold it immediately, and then I went out and bought the 14mm, and I was so happy with that. But I don't know of a lot. You know, it's in Fuji. In other lens mounts, there may be more zoom options, but in Fuji, there's not a lot of options. And the ones that are there are okay and they're flexible, but I just think I don't like the image quality of them. So I tend to shoot primes as a result. I've purchased a few. Tony says, I've purchased a few used converted cameras. Is there a way to tell what the conversion is? So, I mean, I don't know that there's like a scientific way. I mean, I could probably eyeball it at this point and tell you pretty closely. I could certainly distinguish between, say, a 720 and a 590. It might be dicier to distinguish between, say, like a 590 and a 665, or a 590 and a 550. I might not be able to distinguish at that level, but at a broader level, I could certainly distinguish between them. Or obviously, it was like an 850 or something. That would be really easy to distinguish. So if it's an 850, if it's a 850 or 820, 830, something in there, it's going to be black and white. You're just going to get a black and white image. There's going to be no color at all. If your image has a very small amount of color, like a blue sky, but white foliage, then you're probably looking at a 720. If you're able to pull some color out, then you're looking at a lower numbered filter. So that would be sort of the general guidelines that I would use. Let's see. I shot with a filter. I checked the filter. Let's see. I used the IR720 green L filter. I don't know what that means. The green part is what's confusing me. So I'm still a little confused about what's going on with this image. Thoughts on Nikon? I'm considering, this is from Carolyn, I'm considering converted Z50, as I'm already familiar with and invested in their mirrorless system. I'm a big proponent of sticking with the system you know. When I transitioned to Fuji, when I was in Canon, I converted a Canon camera because I was shooting Canon and I could share lenses between them. When I switched to Fuji, I got rid of all my Canon gear. Canon's great, but this is what I did. When I switched to Fuji, I switched it all. I wanted a visible light camera and an infrared camera all in the same system so I could share lenses. I would say the same thing goes with Nikon. Nikon makes great gear, and if you want to stay in the same system, I think these days probably any mirrorless camera is great for infrared. Really, I don't know that you could get a bad mirrorless camera for infrared. So I would say if you want to stay in the same system you're in, absolutely go for it. I don't have specific experience with Nikon, but they're great cameras. I've had one or two Nikon DSLRs, in the past. I've used Nikons. I just don't have any currently, and I haven't used the mirrorless ones. I've actually been pretty curious about some of the mirrorless ones, but there's only so many dollars to go around, and adding infrared to all of it makes it all that much more complicated. Let's see. More thoughts on Nikons. From Peter, what filter, if any, do you favor? 590, I love the black and white you posted. So the first two cameras that I converted were 590 nanometers, and this was before you had like a chrome filter. And so for me, 590 was great because I could shoot in 590, but then I could throw on a 720 or I could throw on an 850. So to me, it gave me a lot of flexibility. So most of my shooting has been with the 590. And I like the color. I like the color that comes from it. Lately, what I've been doing is I try to be more deliberate before I go out. I find that if I let's see, if I am, let's see here, I'm gonna pick a different, something else to look at here. No offense to your image, but we'll go back to one of the other images that I was working on here. Let's see here, back to Yosemite. So for here's a good example of some stuff that was shot with like a 830 filter. So the challenge is that, and many of you have probably seen this challenge. So I've got these cameras, I've got a million lenses, I could shoot infrared, I've got a ton of infrared filters. I get out in the field and I'm paralyzed with, what do I do? What do I shoot? And it's like, oh, there's this scene and if I could just figure out the perfect combination of lens and this and that and settings and filter and all this stuff, then I'll have an amazing 5-star photo. And that when I do that, I'm like crippled. Then I'm crippled with anxiety, and I'm crippled because I'm carrying all my gear on my back. And so what I've done instead, I've taken this new approach in the last year, and it's helped. It's certainly helped me to make videos, but it's also, I think, I do think it improves my photography, and that is when I go out on a trip, I'm very deliberate in what I pack. I rarely take more than 3 lenses. I try to limit myself to 1 or 2 even, and I pick the exact filters that I want to use and the exact purpose that I want to get on a shoot. So I'm going out with a filter, a look, a lens, a style that I know I'm going after, and then I'm trying to find it when I'm out, instead of saying, oh, here's a perfect subject. What are all the options that I could have? So I will pack, sometimes 1 lens and 1 filter in my bag, and that's what I'm shooting, and that's it. And so yeah, most of my stuff has been 590, but I'm trying to experiment with different things. I'm trying to do more black and white. The image that I posted today on Instagram was a black and white image, and I'm trying to do more high contrast black and white images because I really like that style, and I just haven't done it. But the key is, you got to shoot it. You got to be deliberate about it. You've got to be deliberate about what you're doing. And there's so much here in the infrared space to explore. I feel like for me that I just have to try it all. And I have to try all the different things. And there might be some point in the future when I settled in and say, okay, I'm, going to be the guy who shoots this kind of thing, and that's my style, and that could be the case. But in the meantime, I just want to try all the things. But in order to do that, I have to be very deliberate and say, this is what I'm shooting today. I'm going to shoot this filter and this lens, and this is what I get. And so that really helps me to stay focused in what I'm doing. Otherwise, I'd just be all over the place. Let's see. Can I send you a RAW? Of course you can send me a RAW. You can send me a RAW file to this link, and I will take a look at it. I'd be happy to edit it, or create a profile for it, or both. Let's see here. So absolutely do that. Let's see, back to our green image. The green.L is the mark. The shop sold it to me as an IR 720. I'm wondering how much. My next question would be, how much did you pay for it? So this brings me to a topic that I get a lot of questions about, so I'd like to talk about it a little bit, and that is filter quality. So I did a video on the Neewar infrared filter pack that's available super cheap on Amazon, but I've also done a lot of shooting with Hoya and B+W filters, and so higher end filters, and there's a difference that's important to understand, especially now that we're seeing, you see these automatically filters that claim to automatically shift different infrared cutoffs, and I'm super skeptical at this point. I haven't tested one yet, but I'm super skeptical. Here's the thing that you have to understand with a lot of these filters. So if you are shooting on an unconverted camera, so that means any camera that has not been converted, you're going to be taking longer exposures. If you're shooting with a 720, you're probably going to be taking 10 to 30 second exposures. If you're shooting with an 830, you're going to be taking really long, like deep infrared. You're going to be taking like 5-minute exposures. The filter quality is going to be super important with an unconverted camera. Whenever I shoot unconverted, I predominantly stick to Hoya, B+W, Tiffin, or anything from like say LifePixel or Kalari Vision. These are high quality filters that are going to get you good results. Now, shifting back to the newer filters, Niwar, whatever, I don't know how you pronounce it. The challenge is that I just don't think, and of course you're seeing a lot of these, like I said, the automatically switching between different cutoffs, or the cheap filters that you could find on eBay or on Amazon. These are really good with converted cameras, and the reason is that you're taking very short exposures. You're still taking your 60th of a second, 250th of a second exposures, and the filter, a lower quality filter is going to impact your image, but not to the same extent as it is going to on a 5-minute exposure. It's just not going to. I've done a ton of shooting with those Niwar filters on a converted camera, and I've been very happy with the results. Very happy. I don't think you can tell the difference. But if you're going to shoot unconverted, it's really important that you get a high quality filter, and they're more expensive. You get a higher end, like say Hoya filter. It's going to cost $50 used, $100 new. I just picked up a Hoya, the higher end, like a black and white only filter, and it's not even available in the US anymore. It's like discontinued. I had to order it on eBay from Japan just to get that filter. I've bought used Hoya and B+W filters that I've had good luck with, but it's really important that if you're working with an unconverted camera that you buy high quality filters. That's going to be critical. A lot of the problems I see are low quality filters on unconverted cameras. Okay, let's see here. 60 euros. That's a pretty good price. I don't know. Unfortunately, I think I might have to pass on this one. I wish I could help you more, but I need to learn more about this filter and to try to figure out what's going on here with this image. 60 euros seems like suggests a higher quality filter, but I'm just not familiar with the brand, so my apologies. Let's see. Do you convert from color to black and white or shoot 850 nanometers, Peter? Both. So this kind of gets back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier about being deliberate. So I've definitely taken a lot of 590 shots and converted them to black and white. If you look at let's look at some of these images that I haven't finished processing yet. And what you'll notice, like in this case, is you can see these were black and white. So in this shoot, I was very deliberate. I'm trying to be more deliberate. So occasionally I will find a 590 image, and you know how it is where it's like you're working on an image and you like the image, but there's just the color isn't interesting, and you're like, oh, this would make a great black and white. So you make it into black and white, and yay, it's a black and white image. So I do that. I definitely do that occasionally, but I'm trying to be more deliberate. And so you can see if we just kind of browse through some of these images, you can see that I was trying to be more deliberate in using the filters. So this is these are images that I shot with a I forget, it was probably like an 830 filter. So a whole variety of styles here, and usually I can tell this is a mix of like edited and partially edited images. So it's a bit of a mix here, but definitely in this shoot I was trying to be very deliberate, and so the shots that are black and white, I deliberately used a a higher cutoff, probably like an 830 or an 850 filter, because I deliberately wanted that look. So that's something. So you can go both ways. You can try both. In fact, like here's a good example. So you can see right here that this image, you know, I shot this image with specifically with the deep infrared filter, an 800 plus filter. But then here's another image I shot just afterwards with a 720. And so you can, and there's a difference. So I'm sure that if I took a 590 image, converted to black and white, and compared that to an image shot with an 800 plus filter, you'd probably see a difference in some of the images. So I know there would, you know, theoretically be a difference. But again, to me, it's about trying to be more deliberate in my work. It's trying to be more specific about what I'm shooting. So when I have a big shoot like this, you know, you can see I'm deliberately shooting a bunch of different filters and deliberately trying different things. I'm not just shooting all one filter and then converting it later. So you can see some of these images that are all red, or, you know, all shot with a filter with less color. So yeah, I don't think there's a right and wrong. Like if you shoot 590 and convert to black and white, great, you know, more power to you. Or 720, convert to black and white, perfectly viable. I've just found, for me personally, that trying to be more deliberate in my shoots, it helps me to grow. It helps me to learn. So that's what I'm trying to do. Let's see here. So thanks again, Peter. Fractal Builder says, if two 590 nanometers or two 650 nanometers filter stack, what is the result like? I don't. So this is purely theoretical. I don't think it's going to change that much. So the thing with filters, you have to be aware of, we talk about the numbers a lot. We talk about it's a 590 or it's an 820 or whatever. But the reality is there's not like a hard line where, like, on one side of this line, all the light passes, and on the other side of this light, all the light is blocked. It's really a curve that comes down, and it's gradual. And so if you stack two filters on top of each other, maybe it just increases the severity of that curve, I'm guessing. I don't know. I've never tried it. Might be an interesting experiment. I don't know that it would be, I suspect it wouldn't be dramatically different, but I don't know. That's interesting question. Thanks for the advice. I don't want to invest. I don't. So, I want. So thank you for sending me the image, and you know, I really, the thing with infrared, you know, I shoot, I've converted multiple cameras, and there's a lot of expense in that. But I really appreciate people who want to try it and are willing to try it, and try it with unconverted cameras to see if they're interested. It's challenging. It's a challenging thing to get into, and it's tricky. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be here if this was easy. It's definitely challenging, and so, you know, the funny thing is that I just started making the videos just to help me, you know, just to help me figure it out and help me learn and reinforce some of the stuff. And it's still challenging to this stuff. So, you know, hopefully, don't give up. If you don't succeed the first time, please don't give up. I would encourage you to try again. Maybe the conditions need to be different, or maybe a different filter. But it's challenging. It's a challenging space. Let's see. Peter, you always ask me a lot of questions. I welcome the questions. That's what I'm here for. So, no problem asking me lots of questions. Let's see. Dan says, don't try variable IR. Variables, the word I was looking for earlier. Don't try variable IR filters thinking they're going to save you money by having multiple nanometers, and when the quality is horrible and they are not accurate. That's what I've seen from the comments. I might, you know, buy one someday just to test and make a video on it. But it's I think it's in my buy list. It's in my buy list for future videos. But yeah, definitely don't think. I actually, so if you're interested in trying one of those and you've got the money to spend, definitely only do it with a converted camera. Do not buy one of those variable IR things and use it with an unconverted camera. That is like a recipe for disaster right there. So only with converted cameras. Okay, let's see here. Okay. So I think I'm caught up on the questions here. I'm going to go, let's see, I'm going to go back to my list of questions that I have. Here's a good one. So this is a question I've gotten many, many times. The download link for the Adobe DNG profile editor is broken. Can you send me a copy of the program or some variation of that? So no, I can't. I don't want to do that, and let me tell you why. So so I'm, you know, I do some software when I'm not doing photography. I do software work, and the thing is that, you know, yeah, I could throw these programs on Dropbox and make them available, but there's you know, then you're getting into, you know, liability issues, and I don't want to deal with, you know, people getting viruses or any other potential problems, and I certainly I wouldn't want to get a cease and desist from Adobe for distributing their software. It's their choice whether to distribute the software or not. So that is why I put together the profile pack. And so the profile yeah, I bet I got a little click happy, I think. So I just probably gave the speech of my life, and you probably all missed it because I got a little click happy on one of my buttons here. Let's see here. So you should have, you guys should be able to hear me now. Let's see. So there was a question about profiles. I think I've already answered that one. So another question that came to me in the chat from Robert. This is from, it was in a comments in a video. I'm having a camera converted to 590 nanometers. Can I use a 720 nanometer external lens filter to get the 720 nanometer style? Can I use a 470 nanometer filter? So yes and no. So if you are converting a camera so the internal conversion has a numbered cutoff, then what you will want to do is you will want to you will be able to shoot at that or external filters of a higher number, because those are basically going to cut off anything in the intermediary but still allow everything else to pass. However, going to a lower number will not work because the filter in your camera is still going to block and prevent that light from coming through. So if you have a camera converted to a 590 nanometer, you can use a 470 nanometer filter on it, but it's not going to do anything. So you won't be able to get that effect. And that's the same reason why I can't use a chrome styled filter on my 590 nanometer camera, because part of the dual pass is in the area that's blocked. That's why you need a full spectrum camera for those to work. Okay. So let's see here. Yep, you can hear me now. Okay, good. Let's see. Moving on. Any questions in the chat? Okay. So here's another one that came in for the comments on a video from Merrill. How can an unconverted camera capture IR light when there is a hot mirror blocking the IR light? So this relates to what I talked about a little bit earlier in terms of the fact that the cutoffs are not a solid drop-off line. They're actually a ramp that changes. So the thing you need to be aware of is in a visible light camera, there's a hot mirror that is blocking the infrared light and blocking the ultraviolet light. But remember, it's not a hard stop where you stop those. It's a gradual fall off, and then it diminishes. It's kind of like a bell curve. So in the middle of the curve, you're going to have all of the visible light, but then it's going to drop off in the infrared and ultraviolet, and then block most of those things. And here's the thing: if you're taking an image and let's just say for the sake of discussion that 99% of the light is in the visible spectrum and only 1% is coming from infrared or ultraviolet, it's going to be fighting with the visible light to hit your sensor and dominate. And so actually your camera is capturing infrared light. It's just that it's capturing so little of it that you're not seeing it. And so this is why you can still shoot infrared with an unconverted camera, because there's a small amount of light coming through. And what happens is when you attach a 720 nanometer filter to a camera, an unconverted camera that still has the hot mirror, what you're doing is you're blocking the visible light even more than you're blocking the infrared, because again, there's still a little bit that's trickling in at the edges. Now you're going to have really long exposures, and that's going to change things. But this is the nature of how these filters work. Is they're not absolute. They taper off, and then there's I don't know if there's an optical filter that allows some or no light to pass. I don't know if that's the case, especially in the ranges that we're looking at. So that's how you can have that kind of a situation. Let's see. Don sent me 3 raw samples with 2 Zomi filters and 1 Chinese brand that I really love. Okay, I'll check those out. Let's see here. Let's see if I can see how quickly I could pull those up. Here, take a look. I'm on my other screen here trying to find that stuff. I'm gonna need more monitors. You can never have too many monitors. I have a kind of a dual monitor setup for work and for play, and it suits me really well. But now trying to do this, I may need a third. I just may need a third. Let's see here. This directory that I have where you guys send me stuff, and it goes into a directory that's now like 300 images in there. It's taking a long time to load for some reason. Let's see. Oh, okay, here we go. Ooh, okay. Open these up. Oh, it's all zipped. So let me unzip. All right. Let me do an import here. See if I can pull these in. Okay, so let's see. Done. So we get the 3 samples, 2 Zomi filters. I've seen the Zomis, and I was thinking about buying some of those and checking those out, and then the 1 Chinese. So here's a, you know, I don't know if I have a profile. This may allow me to create a profile for the M10. Let's see here. Nope, I don't have a profile. I'll do that later. Let's see. So it's a nice looking image, nice clean image. So that looks like a good filter from that perspective. Nice. I will definitely, I'll make some, I'll take these RAWs and I'll add these to the profile pack a little bit later. Alrighty, let's see. So thanks for sharing, Don. Let's see. Peter, once I do a channel swap, I'm onto the false color space, right? Does the fact that I shoot an infrared affect these colors? People sometimes say I can change colors on a non-infrared in post. So basically, when we say, I've never understood the purpose of what swapping channels does. So I think the channel swapping. So the channel swapping comes from, you know, it originates from the early. Let me find an image that I think would be a good example of why we would where the channel swapping comes from and why. So it's not a, you know, I don't think it's like an absolute, but I think it's a stylistic thing that's developed. Okay, so let's take a look at, I think this image. This doesn't have a lot of color in it. Might be the best one I have from the shoot though. All right. So let's take, let me go back to that and find it. Oh, I started scrolling too fast and I lost it. Let me go back to the top. Okay. Okay, so this is an image that was shot. Let me see how this is still the DNG. Yeah, okay. So I can use profiles to sort of demonstrate to demonstrate you know, why this is the way it is. So here, for example, if I go back to let's see, before I do this, I'm going to save my progress on this image. I'm going to make a snapshot just in case. Okay. So here's an image that is a 720 nanometer image. You can see that the foliage is mostly white, although there's maybe a hint of yellow, and the sky is this very subtle blue color. And so this is what I would call traditional infrared. 720 nanometer to me is traditional infrared. So this is the earliest style. This is what you'd get with an unconverted camera, and this is probably what the earliest digital infrared style that they used, this type of filter. And so if I switch to a different, I've got so many profiles in here now, it's hard for me to keep track. Let me just switch over to, no, I don't want this. I just want a temp. Okay. So let me just switch over to, I'm going to do the 50. Okay. So this is what the image looks like, you know, with a good white balance out of camera. And so what you have here with this image, and there's nothing wrong with this image. There's no need to do a color swap. There's absolutely no need. What you have is you've got, again, an image dominated by the grays. In this case, the trees have a slight blue, a little bit of a baby blue to them, and the sky is like a deep golden color. So as an infrared image, print it. It's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. The reason people do a channel swap is because it makes the sky blue. period. That's it. So if I switch this to this image, get my white balance, or I could just go back to my preset. So I've swapped it. And now what happens is that because the sky is blue, in this case it's a bit dark, but I think you get what I'm talking about. With a blue sky, the sky looks natural. It looks more natural anyway. And then the focus of the image becomes the white foliage and the other things happening in the image. So color swapping, it's just purely stylistic. Using false colors is a purely creative stylistic choice. You do not have to do that. In fact, I've seen a bunch of people who just shoot, they'll shoot like a 720 or 590. They'll get a good white balance that they like, and then boom, they'll edit and share that image as is. It's very, it's got a red sky, it's very bold, it's very dramatic. Great. There's nothing wrong with that. So really, the entire purpose, I think, of the channel swap is to get that blue sky, because then the blue sky looks natural, more natural, and then the focus of the image becomes the other things that are unnatural, like the white foliage becomes unnatural, and so that's it. It's purely. It is purely a creative choice. It is your choice. You can swap a lot of, this is a popular style. I do this style a lot. I've emulated this style, and and then with 590, something with more colorful trees, so something, more akin to, let's see. So this style, or let me find something with a sky in it. You can see it with the sky. Let's see here. Let's see. Yeah. So something like this. Something like this. So this would be your sort of 590 style. So yeah, this, it's, again, if we look at this image, it's the same thing. So if I get the sky blue or bluish, I do this teal thing occasionally, but if I get the sky bluish, you're not quite as focused on the sky. You tend to be focused on the other stuff in the image. And so that's where I think that the advantage of this technique is, and that's why it's popular. I think it's an effective technique, but that's it. It's just a creative choice. And then let's see, there was another question about, let's see, can I change colors on a non-infrared camera post? You can do the same stuff that you do in infrared, can apply to visible light images. In fact, I would say that my visible light photography has gotten better because of the techniques that I've learned in infrared. And so let me give you an example. So if I go over to, so this is some stuff that I shot. This is from the same shoot, but this is with a visible light camera. Okay. So let's say I'm going to come into, let me just pick a shot at random. And I'm going to come in here, and this was November, but let's say I really want to play with the images here in this visible light shot. So one of the things that I've really learned with infrared is how to work with this HSL panel. And so I'm more comfortable before working in infrared, I wasn't as comfortable with colors. Like I would try to get a good white balance and I would accept the colors as is. But now I'm way more comfortable playing with colors. So now I will come in here to the HSL panel, and I'll maybe grab this so I can get this green color, and I could grab that and I could start playing with it, start dragging the hue around. What does it look like? Maybe I'll just come over to the slider here. You can go in that direction. It's still green, but it has another flavor to it. Or you could go in this direction. It's more neon. I've got some fall images that, I've got I'll have to be a little bit honest here. I've got this really, really nice image I took in visible light it was in the fall, and it's a beautiful reflection with water and all these orange leaves everywhere. It didn't quite look like that in real life. They were a bit yellowish and greenish, and I made them orange using some of these techniques. So yeah, false color, true color, it's art, man. Be creative. Do whatever you want to do. Make it look however you want. Tell the story that you want to tell, and that's go for it. Let's see. Let's see. I like the channel swap. Do you, another one from Peter, do you use any ancillary programs like Nik? So I have used, what is it? Silver Effects, the black and white one. I know a lot of people use Nik, and a lot of people love Nik. I struggle with the interface, the controls. I'm getting better at it, but I've struggled with the controls and getting it to work. So I really like what it does. I like the capabilities of it, especially in Silver Effects. But I'm not as good at it yet. I would need to spend more time in it, and I just haven't invested the time into it. And you can, probably the kind of stuff we were just looking at with the HSL panel, you could probably do some of that. I think there's whatever the color version of Nik is, has some really interesting color stuff. And so that's a really great tool as well. But again, I just haven't had as much experience with it. So maybe at some point in the future. Let's see. Another question. I've already answered that question. Looking at some of the questions that came in to previous videos. There was one of the things that's interesting is people have asked me about this black and white infrared preset. And so there's this preset in here in that comes with Lightroom. So if you go into presets and you go into the black and white section, there's one called black and white infrared. And it's just, I guess bogus, maybe. If you look over here, if I look over at the black and white panel, it's converting to black and white, and then it's just jacking up the luminance on the yellows and greens. So really, it's just trying to. So if we take this image is a, like I said, this is a visible light image. I could use this filter to kind of fake an infrared look if I wanted to, but that's really all it is. It's not. Some people see this and they think, oh, it's somehow to be used with infrared photos, and that's not the case at all. It is designed to fake an infrared look. So as a result, I never use it. Let's see. Here's a question that I had on one of the videos in the comments from Prancy. What tool or system do you use to color calibrate your monitor? There are numerous color calibration tools from modest to pricey. Any recommendations or instructions on the best approach to use to color calibrate your monitor? So I've investigated many of those, and this is what I do for me personally. So I start with the calibration tools that are available in Windows and in the Mac OS. And that's definitely, everybody should start there. So start there. And yes, could I get more precise colors by buying a piece of hardware and attaching it to my monitor and calibrating all the time? Yeah. And if I was a professional photographer working in fashion or food or some other commercial type of work, I absolutely would do that. But I'm not. So I just don't want to spend the money on that. I'd rather buy another infrared filter or convert another camera. So my colors may not be perfect, but they're good enough for me. So I can't recommend any of those hardware conversion tools, but I absolutely would say you should absolutely do the color calibration in Windows or in the Mac OS. That's going to get you, 99% of the way there. And for most people, I think that's good enough, especially if the end result is you're going to share images on Instagram or Facebook or Flickr or whatever, then that's probably good enough for most of those cases. So that's what I would do for color calibration. Let's see. And there's one other question that I wanted to talk about. If you've been patient enough to hang along this far. So people will ask occasionally, let's go back to an infrared image. Let's pick one of these, pick an infrared image to talk about. We already looked at that one. Let's pick another one, kind of randomly looking through these images. These are good. Let's pick one of these. Okay, this is a nice image. Okay, so people will say, why doesn't Adobe just, they've got, this whole profile thing, it's a total pain. Why don't they just extend the range of this slider? So, I'm going to do a snapshot here again to save my work. So they could just say, oh, it goes to from 2000 to 5000. If I completely reset this image back to the beginning, you can see, if I could, it's heading in the right direction. If it could just go lower, why can't they just change the slider to make it go to 1000 or 0 or whatever, and then we would have the range we need to set a white balance. And I had the same question myself for a long time, and it wasn't until I was working on making the enhanced profiles that I realized the reason why and how these profiles actually work. The way that they work is that for every model of camera, there's this Adobe color profile, and it looks like one profile. Okay, it looks like it's one profile, but under the covers, behind the curtain, it's actually two profiles. It's actually two sets of colors. It's a color set for this camera, this specific camera. So it's going to look at the model of camera. So in this case, it's my XT20. So it looks at this camera and it sets a color temperature value of 2000, and then there's a second that sets the value for 50,000. So it's actually two profiles. And then as I drag this slider, the program is taking these two extremes and calculating what goes in the middle. So there's a profile for each of these, and you just have to figure out, where it's going to live, with these. Excuse me. Let me get a quick drink. So every time a new camera comes out, Adobe has to create. You think this is Adobe Color? It's one profile that's used across all cameras. It's not. There's actually a different Adobe Color for every single model of camera that comes out. And every time a new camera comes out, Adobe has to create a new copy of Adobe Color, and all of these other if I go into the raw here, Adobe Monochrome, that one's different, easy, landscape, neutral, standard, portrait, vivid. They have to recreate this for every camera model that comes out. And so the problem is that it's not just a matter of changing the slider. The slider is calibrated to those two sets of color profiles that come out for every single camera. And so to change the slider, you would actually have to redo all the profiles for I don't know how many hundreds, thousands of camera profiles. And I just don't think that, Adobe is interested in doing that, because obviously we're a very small niche. And so there's not much, market incentive for them to do that. And this is the reason, why they created the enhanced profiles. Because if you look at the other, these artistic profiles, so these came out, you might remember these came out a few years ago. I don't know, a couple years ago, I don't remember. So these artistic, black and white, modern, so all these variations, they wanted to offer these variations, but with the old profile system, they would have had to offer these variations for every single camera. And it just got to be too much to manage. And so this enhanced profile allowed them to create a system of profiles that would work on top of the base profile. So the base profile being Adobe Color, and then they could have these artistic, these other four categories: artistic, black and white, modern, and vintage. These are all enhanced profiles that are based on the base profile. The other thing you might notice is that with a camera, an older camera, like again, this XT20 from a few years ago, it's got these 7 profiles. These were the standard ones that Adobe came with. If you get a brand new camera today, you're going to open this up in Lightroom or in the D&G profile editor, you'll find that Adobe has only shipped a single profile, the Adobe Color. They don't even do these other 6. It's just a single one. And then everything else is an enhanced profile on top of that. So they're changing the way that they use profiles so that they could have all of these fancy profiles that would all leverage a single base profile. So now when a new camera model comes out, they just have to come up with one profile, one base profile for that, and everything else can be built on top of it. So I don't think they're going to change the temperature slider, certainly not for us. But that's okay. We can use, we can still use the profile pack. We can make enhanced profiles, and we can do what we need to do. But I just, I wanted to talk about that because it's It's a bit more involved. It's not something that I've gotten to specifically in a video, but it's very unlikely that Adobe's going to go changing the nature of this slider. And you know, it might be easier if for like a different program, like let's say an On1 or a Capture One, if they used a different method for calculating color temperature, then that's not based on a profile, then they probably could adjust the slider. But the way that Camera Raw has set this up, it's based on a pre-existing 2000 Kelvin and a 50,000 Kelvin, and everything in the middle is just calculated. So that's why it's unlikely to change the slider anytime soon. So that's a little bit of software trivia for those of you who are interested. So I think we're getting near the end here, but I want to thank everybody for stopping by, and I appreciate those of you who sent me your images and take a look. If there's enough interest in the future, we could have people, you know, send me images ahead of time, and we can get those queued up, and then maybe have a go at editing people's images or troubleshooting images. The best way to do that is going to be to send me the images and some details. So what camera was used, I can figure that out usually. Was it converted or unconverted, and what was the filter? And then if we want to edit images or diagnose problems, we can certainly do that. But in any case, I want to thank everybody for stopping by and asking questions. I really appreciate you spending some time with me and participating. So thanks so much. Take care.